About sports. Bop. Howdy, Ags. Welcome to the Tailgate, home of Aggie Football. Today's sponsor is Matthews Electric, full-service electrical contractor in the Brazos Valley. No job too big, no job too small. Call Blaine at 979-220-6403. Light up your home, light up your life. Uh, Howdy, folks. Let's talk a little Aggie sports today. Uh, I'd like to remind everybody to get on the YouTube. Email us at agstailgate@gmail.com if you want to email us there. Comment on the YouTube. Subscribe. Make sure to leave some comments. I like to get those in as well. So if they're valuable, if they can add something to the show. So let me know. All right. I'd like to welcome a bunch of new subscribers to this episode. And today's rundown, we're going to go a little bit around Aggie sports. We're going to also talk about the status of Aggie football. So let's start with some news and notes. Spring football practice starts Friday, March the 20th. The maroon and white game will be played Saturday, April the 18th. So make sure and mark your calendars. We'd like to get some folks out to the maroon and white game, see what's going on with this team and how they're progressing. A few things that we are excited to see is the updated roster. So once practice starts, we should get a full roster. I think at this point, we feel like the hay is in the barn with regards to recruiting, transfer portal, and all things adding players. So that roster will tell us a lot. Not to mention, take a look and see where any updates, weights, heights with regards to players, see any gains. Maybe anybody unexpectedly missing from the roster. So the other thing, obviously, at the start of spring practice, will be a discussion about injuries. See if anybody's going to miss the spring term and spring practice. And then finally, I think the last piece is what do the groups look like on the offensive line and the defensive line? So what are the new guys that came in the transfer portal? Where are they fitting in? What are some of the younger players that have been on the roster? Where are they fitting in? And so that'll be interesting to see. Here come start March 20th, about a month and a half away, I guess. Also, another announcement from Aggie Football. They announced the Aggie Football Club, which connects fans with Texas A&M football athletes. Memberships are different levels, anywhere from $1,000 to $15,000 annually. So if you'd like to get a little bit more access from your Aggie football team, uh, check out the Texas A&M Football Club, the Aggie Football Club. Going to baseball, season opens on February 13th against Tennessee Tech. Just just another basically week and a half from today. February 27th, play the Agee Bank College Baseball Series against Virginia Tech, UCLA, and Arizona State in Arlington. So another group of games there against some quality opponents up in Arlington. And then start ACC baseball at Oklahoma on March 14th. A lot to prove for Coach Early in his second season. Very disappointing first season. They brought him back in year two. Very talented roster, just like it was last year. Lots of talent. Harrison, Benderup, Kent, Royo, Grahovic, Hakopian, some of the transfer guys, Sorrell, Keel, Dewar, pitching, Sadeo, Moss, Stewart, Freshcorn. So they've got lots of talent on the roster. Let's see what they can do with it in the second year under Mike Early, and see if he can get these guys to perform at the level in which they should. Softball starts this week against ACU and play number one Texas Tech on Saturday at 4:30 p.m. So that'll be a that'll be a good early test for the softball squad, who's trying to bring back, the success of Aggie softball here. Let's get right into some Bucky Ball, which is the sport that is currently ongoing that's got us all excited. Uh, Agee named SEC Player of the Week after the performance against Georgia, 18 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists. Another big road win for the Aggies against Georgia, 92-77, 15-point beatdown of the Bulldogs, in spite of the fact that they didn't get a great contribution from Griffin, who was 2 of 8 for only 5 points, a guy that had kind of been one of the stars and leading scorers over the last couple of games, had a down game. A guy that this team depends on. Dominguez only 2 of 8 from 3-point land. He wasn't hot. And they still went by 15 on the road. Production from Hill, who went for 15, Pop 11. Pop's been a big time contributor for this team. Really the last, ever since the beginning of SEC play and maybe a little bit further back. And then AG, old reliable, giving us the 18 and 15. The other guy coming off the bench, Dibba, great second half. Had 15 points for the game and was a huge reason for the win when Georgia brought the game and brought it, I believe, to a 2-point game after leading by 20, a 22-20 lead after the first couple minutes of the game. Georgia got right back in it, brought it in the second half, brought it down to, I think they were down to a 2-point lead by the Aggies. And shortly after that, Dibba hit a couple of big shots, made some nice plays, and helped up that lead again, and obviously lead to the win by 15. So 19 of 20 from the free throw line have really been dominant at the free throw line of late. 34 points in the paint, 11 points off turnover, 15 second chance points, 19 fast break points, 32 bench points, 38% from three. All of these things kind of a result of the style of play that Bucky Ball brings. Love listening to Coach, when he's talking. We listen to him in the basketball hour as well as the interview, the pregame for this Alabama contest that's coming up. But, they shoot, they pressure you, they get deep. Uh, 10, 11 guys contribute to the game. Their depth is incredible. They get production from different folks, Dibba, Hill, Lane, Dominguez, Agee. We talked about Griffin. So Clements the other day, Clements, I mean, big game, so they're able to get performances and production from a lot of different folks on the roster. And they look good doing it. Man, it's exciting brand of basketball. They hit threes from, they hit threes from a number of different people, like I said, and they're able to spread you out that way. They run and gun. They press, press, press all game long, which is, I think, one of the best parts. And that pressure, that rotation on the press has gotten better and better. So they're looking really good. They've got a very important stretch, and it's a stretch that'll let you know sort of where things stand for this team. They've got Alabama on Wednesday tomorrow, and then they get Florida at home on Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Then home against Mizzou, and then they go to Vandy. So a 4-game stretch is pretty good. Get some really good competition. Teams still not getting the respect that they deserve. Not ranked in spite of being number one in the SEC at the moment, 7-1. First in the SEC, unranked. Unranked in the polls. This team has not lost in regulation since basically the first 4 games, right? Since way back in November, when that team wasn't anywhere close to the team that it is today, a team that hadn't played together, a team that was, under new coaches, the team that didn't have a single player that's a contributor on this team on this roster last year. So, you sit in here and you look at it, and yeah, they had two early losses. And since then, have not lost in regulation, two overtime losses that one could say, hey, maybe you should have won, those. The game against Tennessee at Tennessee, they went double overtime. They had a lead going into late seconds there and weren't able to hold it. SMU also an overtime loss, that once again couldn't hold the lead that they probably should have. So, this team has really played well since then. And as of late, they've started to flex their muscles a little bit. Let's see how that goes against a team like Alabama that's going to run and gun with you. I'm not sure that they have the same amount of depth. I don't think that, they're not going to press you like we press them. So we'll see how that works on Wednesday. And then Saturday against a team in Florida who everybody sort of wildly considers the best in the SEC and who is huge and has a lot of size and talent on the interior, as opposed to an Aggie team that obviously is more guard oriented. And so we'll see how that sort of plays out. Can they hold up inside in order to make a run against a team like Florida at home, needing support from the Aggie faithful on that one? So come on out and support, buddy. We may be at the game. We'll see. We're trying to see if we can finagle some tickets. All right, let's get to some football. As always, this is a football podcast. Couple of things on the football side of things. Aggies did well at the Senior Bowl. Nate Berkacher, lots of reports about him sort of being the best tight end there. He had some amazing catches. I saw a video of one of the best catches of the week by anybody, wide receiver or tight end. Crown over looked good and had a lot of folks raving about his feet. He's a huge, huge individual. His size is actually, stands out, but he was able to move and do some good things. Zune started well, got hurt, and sort of that hurt him a little bit. But I think Zune still had some good moments out there. After these bowls, these sort of the Senior Bowl and some of the other performances in these All-Star games after the season, it looks like the Aggies could have 6 or 7 in the first 2 days of the draft. 6 or 7 guys. I mean, as many as so. Potentially, that many, and that's the first round in day one, and the next 3 rounds in day two. So second, third, and fourth round, I believe, in day two. KC, Howell, Zoom, Crown over, Besantes, Lee, maybe T.O. can get into the mix in those rounds. You never know who ends up, maybe somebody likes Berkacher, but he's more of a likely day 3 guy. We'll see where things stand with Father and how people like him, as well as Reed Adams that I didn't mention there. Oh, sorry about that, guys. Who I didn't mention there and could get into the mix as well. So some different guys, Regis, another guy that, could get into the mix at some point in that draft, but I think that's a pretty good number of guys that have the chance to get drafted this year. Something we haven't really been able to say about a lot of Aggie players of late, as we've talked about before. Coach Oko said, "Hey, we need more NFL players on this roster to win." Well, you need to win more to get more NFL players, right? As it turns out, teams that win get players drafted. That's just the way it goes. So go 11-2. Here you go. There's going to be more of those guys that are going to end up getting drafted, and hopefully more of these guys. Didn't even talk about York, but more of these guys that end up having a productive NFL career as well. So good luck to those gentlemen. We'll talk more about their position in the draft as we get closer to those dates sometime in April. Today, let's talk a little bit about this A&M offense, and I want to talk about whether each unit's going to be better or worse. And then we'll talk about whether this offense is going to be better or worse. And what we're going to do is really talk about it today as far as where things stand today based off of what we know. And then we're going to later in the year come back, revisit, and say, okay, post spring, we feel maybe better about this or worse about that. So we'll see. Okay. So as we go through the offense, look, we're going to start at quarterback where everybody always starts, right? The quarterback Marcel Reed's going to have to be a big part of where this team is. Is this quarterback room going to be better or worse? Who are the players involved? Marcel's in his fourth year, going to be in his fourth year. Hart for his second year, Morco's second year, and Kasuga in his first year as a freshman. Who did we lose? We lost O'Neal and Zeno. O'Neal was a second year player last year, Zeno, a fifth year guy. And so, based off of those losses and the group that we have, is this group going to be better or worse? I think it's easy. This group is the quarterback room is better. First of all, Zeno wasn't a contributor. O'Neal was the backup. Now, you know, to a certain extent, he was quite a bit different than what we saw from Marcel or even prior to Marcel, any of the guys that sort of played in this system beforehand. He's a big, statuesque, big armed kid. I hope he does great at North Carolina, but I'm not too worried about losing O'Neal. I believe that the guys behind him, Hart, end up being a better player in this system anyway. I'm really excited about Kasuga, to be honest with you. I like the things that he's shown in game time situations, right? In game and his like moxie, let's say. So I'm excited for him down the line. But here, what we're really talking about is Marcel Reed in his second year, full-time year as a starter, in his third year, uh, playing, right? Fourth year on campus. Marcel is the leader of this team. Marcel's definitely the leader of this offense, and he's a guy that people want to talk about the way he finished last year, and they keep, sort of shooting him down as far as what he can do. And we've talked about some of his deficiencies here, right? Guy needs to get better in certain areas. There's no question. Needs to get better in the turnovers. There's no question. Needs to be more secure with the football. There's no question. We believe that he can do better job in the read areas as far as, especially in the run reads, where sometimes he didn't always make the best decision, whether to give or keep. Whether he had that decision, I don't know. But those are things that I think he can get better at. All those things I think he can get better at. We believe he's going to be better at it. Another year under his belt, he was a Heisman contender late in the year last year. He's going to have an opportunity to show and to build on the things that he did last year. Remember, when this team was doing well against a team like Notre Dame, when it was winning games against Florida, when it was winning games against Arkansas, when things got tight against Arkansas, when obviously we were behind against South Carolina, he's the guy that put this offense on his shoulders and got this team to the wins, right? This A&M 11-win season he was a big reason for their success, especially offensively. Anytime the run game wasn't moving, Marcel bailed us out, even against Miami. Bailed us out. He went down the field and drove inside the 10-yard line. Didn't get a whole lot of help from his coordinator inside the red zone in order to produce some things that, that are going to be a little bit easier instead of, trying to drop back and throw into a small area with 8 defenders dropping back into that area, right? I mean, we got no help from the coordinators on that. And the biggest question to me is how much improved this quarterback position can be is how will the change in the offensive coordinator going from Colin Klein to Wiggins, how's that going to affect this offense? I'm I think it could be a positive effect, especially if Wiggins really embraces his role as a wide receivers coach, right? Let's get this passing game. Let's get some creativity behind it. Let's get some explosive plays because we've got the players. And the other piece of it is going to be how about the losses on the offensive line? How does that impact the play of the quarterback? I think the offense is going to be a little bit more dependent on the pass. I think that means that Marcel will have a bigger year. Now it's, how how that impacts this entire offense is going to be based off of like I said, the support he gets from his offensive coordinator and obviously the players around him. So we'll see. We'll see how that continues to develop. But as just a quarterback room, I think we're better. That's a good first step for an offense. How about running back? Well, we got Morrow coming back in his second year. We got Owens in his fourth year. Tiger Ryden second year. KJ Edwards and Baker as freshmen. You lose Moss. You lose Smith. You lose Daniels. All those guys, fourth year players. Um, Look, there is. I am excited for the young backs on this roster. I'm excited because I believe Morrow's got a bright future ahead of him. I think Edwards and Ryden and Baker are all guys with bright futures ahead of them. I think that they can be productive backs in college. We know, we know that backs can be productive as freshmen in college. I mean, look at Keyshawn Jud, Quinshawn Judkins. Go look at, you know, Bo Jackson last year, right? So guys, there's plenty of examples out there of productive freshman running backs. Um, and so and so, those guys can jump in and show up and be ready to roll. But ultimately, it's not just the two freshmen. You got Morrow and Ryden, who I think have to take a step and be bigger contributors on this offense. I think Morrow really has the potential to become a big time back. Owens has to continue to show that he can produce explosive plays. You know, I will say this, you can't lose Le'Veon Moss and just expect to be better though. And I know he was hurt for a lot, but the fact of the matter is that he was a difference maker that these other guys have not proven to be yet. He was an established difference maker. When he was on the field, that dude was our best player on offense, period. I know KC, Craver, Marcel, all those guys. He was the best player on offense when he was healthy and on the field. And so you can't lose your best player, a guy that's an absolute stud, and then say, okay, we're going to be better. Just because of the fact that he was hurt for part of the time. Understood. He's not even in consideration anymore. There's no option. And then you got Amari Daniels, who was a guy that's been a pretty daggone productive back for this group, also leaving. EJ Smith also leaving, right? So ultimately, can this group be better at the end of the season? Can they be about as good? Probably, maybe. Yeah, maybe so. If you get big years from Jamarian Morrow, you get big years from Ryden or Baker or Edwards, man, then you may end up saying, hey, this group is just as good, let's say, close to being as good. But I don't think you're going to get to the Moss place. I just don't. I don't see that yet. Maybe in year three Moss in year one wasn't the same guy. Maybe in year three for Morrow. Maybe in year three for Edwards. Maybe you get to those points. but I don't see that. Not to mention, you've got to account for the fact that the offensive line is, you know, got to replace four guys. How's that going to affect the run game? I think I have to put this group at worse. Um, I don't think Owens is, everybody's kind of sort of waiting on Owens to take that lead role. I don't think Owens is the bell cow type of back. I think he's an explosive change of pace guy, a guy that can give you production, obviously, and make plays for you. But I don't think he can be Moss, right? What we'll have to see, and the guys that are if Morrow or Ryden can Ryden come in and be kind of that bigger back because I think that's a place where we still need to see somebody step up who can be that big power back. And maybe he does put into that. And we know that you don't always have to be this big, huge guy to be a consistent runner inside and make those plays. Morrow can still do that. But maybe Ryden is a bigger back and can add a little bit to that as well. So we'll see. We'll see where this group is at the end of the season. At the beginning of the year, we're worse at running back. That's just a fact. Uh, Wide receiver. So I think this is a very interesting group. Craver in year three, Horton, I think is in fifth year in college, Bethel Roman in his third year, Bussy in his third year, TK Norman in his second year, Kelshawn Johnson in his second year. These are guys that, are younger guys that have been developing here. Jonah Wilson, the fourth year in college football, Jerome Miles in his second year, didn't play at all last year, all hurt. Aaron Gregory, first year, Jaden Warren, his first year. Who do we lose? We lose KC, obviously a huge loss, a guy that's potentially a first round NFL draft pick, and Isaiah Williams. Both of those guys, I think Isaiah had a chance to develop into a productive player here. He decided to go do it at K-State. That's all good. We've got other guys. So is this group better or worse? I think this group is better. I know that's hard to say after you lose KC, that same argument that we just had with regards to Le'Veon Moss. This is different because KC, yes, he was a stud last year. He was an absolute playmaker last year. But Mario Craver's right there. Mario Craver is about to be the man. Rio is explosive. The dude is tough. He makes catches. You don't see a lot of drops in his game. That dude's an absolute beast. He's going to be one of the best wide receivers in the SEC. He was already one of the best wide receivers in the SEC last year. This year, I think he takes another step. He becomes even a bigger part of that. And then, while you're not replacing KC, you add Horton to this group, who's a proven production guy at Alabama in the SEC. You add him, and he's a different kind of receiver, right? We saw KC and Craver; they were similar in some things that they did. Let's get the ball into Craver's hands quick, man. Let's boom, boom, boom. Let's do all those things, and then let's throw him over the top. Let's let him go deep. All those. Horton is a big-bodied guy. He's that receiver and he's physical, right? He's physical. He's a receiver that we didn't really have on this roster last year, or at least we didn't use on this roster last year. And so with his physicality, his tools, it's going to be a little bit different from what KC provides, different from what Mario provides. So it should add maybe a little bit of another element with regards to those guys. And yeah, Bethel Roman taller, a little bit taller than some, yeah, but he's not that big physical guy. Horton's a little bit, it's going to be a little bit more of that guy that can, do some, one-on-one covered and go make contested catch type things, and so he gives you an option different from a Mario, right? Different from a KC. And I like that type of addition here. But here's the thing. Everybody's sort of, thinking that now it's the Mario and Horton show. Do not underestimate what this team will get from the third year for Bethel Roman. a guy who towards the end of last season really started to show out, really started to make plays for this offense, can still be a big play guy down the field and do some of those things. So Bethel Roman, I think, takes another step from what he produced last year. And that's going to be big for this offense. And then you got Terry Bussey, a guy that's sort of been lost in the shuffle here with the guys that were added last year in Mario and Casey. I think Terry has a chance to have a good third year. Can he start to get some reps as far as the things that they want to do as far as getting the ball to guys underneath? Now remember, this is only really his third year as a full-time receiver in football, right? He played everything in high school, a lot of quarterback, right? And so this is going to give him he's starting to get into it. He's a supreme athlete, though. There's no denying that. It is up to Wiggins to figure out how to get this guy involved. You know, I think he's going to be very highly involved in special teams again, and we'll see how he gets more involved in offense. But don't stop at only those guys. What about those young guys that we've been talking about? We saw a little bit from TK, and I think he's got some really nice tools. I think we saw very little from Kelshawn Johnson, but I think that dude's got some really nice tools. Can they take this off season and really take a step forward to try to get into the mix? I think that's big. How about the two five-star guys, right? I mean, with Gregory and Miles, that are up there. So, you know, that's a lot of depth at wide receiver, quality depth at wide receiver. And now with Wiggins running the show out here, can he get a lot of these guys involved? As a wide receivers coach, can he find ways to get some of these guys involved to continue to create explosive plays? I think we're overall, as a group, better there. And we could, because of the young talent, I think we could even survive issues with injuries and things like that at the top. We'll see. We'll see different body types also being a part of that with Miles, Gregory, so and obviously Horton on that. So excited about the wide receiver room. Really excited to see what Wiggins does with this group and to see how they really mesh with Marcel. Let's move into the tight ends. So pick up Houston Thomas. He's a fifth-year guy. Richie Anderson, a fourth-year guy. You got Michael Riley. He's a fifth-year guy. And then Coyote Armstrong, who's going to be in his second year. But you lose Berkiner. You lose Theo and you lose Nyblack. Look, forget Nyblack. He didn't do anything on this roster last year. Theo, was a big time recruit and he developed, but he never got to that point where we thought he could get to. He still does not quite have the physicality of the game, sort of, as far as like the high end physicality, right? So, he wasn't a very good blocker at all. But losing Nate Berkiner is a big loss. We just talked about what he's doing in these all-star realms going into the NFL draft. The guy was underutilized here at A&M. I believe that he could have been a bigger part of this offense. The catches that he did make were huge. The plays that he made were huge. He could have been even more involved. But on top of that, he was a blocker at the point of attack, and the guy was very, very productive in that area as well. And so losing that guy, yeah, you gain some of these other guys. And maybe Armstrong is a guy in his second year that can be a difference maker. He's definitely the wild card here. But as of today, you get Houston Thomas and Anderson. Neither one of those two guys, coming from those lower ranks, they're not ready to come into the SEC and be a point setter at the point of attack, blocker kind of guy. Neither one of those guys. That's not Thomas. That's not Thomas. UTSA, he was they used him as a pass catcher. And yes, he's got those tools. He can go make plays in the passing game. But remember, they threw the ball a lot more. Will the Aggie offense involve that tight end as much as those guys did? I don't know. Fact of the matter is that these tight ends will get opportunities at times, but I'm not sure that they're going to get a ridiculous amount of opportunities. So where do they need to be productive? In the blocking game at times. For this team, they need to be able to slow down the pass rush. They need to be able to block on the edge for the run game and make plays that way. Block on the perimeter for those wide receivers as well. And I think you're losing a guy in Berkshire that does those things better than anybody that's left on here. I'm interested to see how Mike O'Reilly comes into play here because I think he's a guy that can be physical and do some of those things, even get in the backfield as a fullback type. And so I'm interested to see how he goes. But in reality, I expect the tight end group to be worse because no Berkshire, period. No Berkshire, period. And I don't know that you've got that guy yet. The guy that can do both. Go catch the ball and make big plays and be your best blocker on out there as well. Okay. So as of right now, that's where I have it. Look, um, wild card is Armstrong, right? But he didn't see the field last year. I mean, not in any meaningful time, right? And so this idea that he's going to come in and all of a sudden be an all-star, well, if he were that good, he'd have probably played some last year. I don't see that. Could he start getting his reps in and start making some plays and then all of a sudden getting involved? Maybe by end of the year, he's, in the mix. Yeah, maybe. Maybe, but I don't see him being one of the primary targets at tight end early on because he hasn't got there yet. He's got a lot of he also has a lot of development to do with regards to the physical side of being a tight end. So tight end, we're taking a step back this year, I think, especially at the beginning of the year. We'll see where it goes from there. How about offensive tackle? Let's go break down the offensive line into the three different spots. Offensive tackle. You've got Lamont Rogers as a second-year guy, Robert Borden, third-year guy, Wilkin Formby, the Alabama transfer, fourth-year guy, Tyree Adams, LSU transfer, fourth-year guy. But you lose Zoom, a fifth-year guy, Crown over, a fifth-year guy, Father, a fifth-year guy. You lose Newman to Texas as a transfer, who was a freshman. Not a big loss there. But you know, I like the potential of this group at tackle. I really do. I think Lamont Rogers has a chance to be a big time player. I think I really liked what I saw from Bordon as he got on the field last year. I mean, even in meaningful times. I liked what I saw from him. The additions with Formby and Adams, both of those guys come from groups that didn't play well as offensive lines at LSU and Alabama. Both of them were bad at those two spots. The offensive lines were not good. They were not good. Better coaching, maybe. We'll see if we can get that here. But ultimately, I think that if we are to get better than the group we had last year, it means that these young guys are getting some time up there and they have started to develop into those. Lamont Rogers is looking like that five-star prospect because where I think we lacked at offensive tackle last year was physicality at times, right? And maybe Formby can help some of that at right tackle. Maybe, you know, he doesn't have the best feet and the movement skills, let's say. But he does bring some physicality with him. And so maybe he improves in that area for us, especially in the run game and seeing where that is at. Can we get those young guys to be those big time physical guys? I mean, when we played, you saw it when we played Miami, those offensive tackles. Oh, geez, that's that's impressive, man. Those two guys were huge. They were monsters. They were very, very impressive, physical, right? Maybe we can be more physical, but it won't happen at the beginning of the year, right? This group is still going to be, can it be good? Yes. Is it going to be as good as it was last year with two, three, fifth-year guys? No, not at the beginning. Maybe by the end of the year, the hope is that by mid to end of season, with some big time growth from guys like Rogers, from Bordon, that we may be getting better towards the end of the year. Maybe we're better at one of the tackle spots and not as good at the other one, right? Zune was very, very productive. Maybe we're better at right tackle. We're getting all these reports about Crownover and how good he's looking going pros with this side. You know, he wasn't as good here. He didn't play that way. Can we get better production out of, whether it's Formby or Bordon at right tackle than we did out of him and Father? We'll see. We'll see. But overall, as a tandem, I think we're probably a little bit worse. Not quite as good. Guard. We got Blake Ivy coming back, 3-year guy, third-year guy. Afua, third-year guy. Ashton Funk, a third-year guy. Cohen Eccles is a third-year guy. Trovon Baugh, that was transferred from South Carolina, fourth-year guy. You lose Basantis, Reed Adams at the guard spot. Basantis was a third-year player, Reed Adams, sixth-year player. So you're losing, a little bit of experience from Reed Adams. The fact of the matter is that, look, Basantis is a big loss. I think Basantis was very good inside. He was probably, or it's hard to say best with Zune out there. Most consistent, maybe not. But right there with Zune is our best offensive lineman all year, right? Zune playing at left tackle and at center was great. So Basantis is probably right with him or right below him as far as what he did last year for A&M. But Reed Adams didn't even was sharing time by the end of the season, right? He was literally, sharing time at right guard. So, he hadn't had the productive year that we expected from him that last year. I think he took a little bit of a step back. As always, he always had his problems with penalties, but he also had problems, just straight up missing blocks at times. So the loss of Reed Adams isn't as big of a loss. Loss of Besantis is pretty big. I really like the group of young guys. I don't think Baugh is going to get in the mix as a starter. I like this group of young guys. I think Afua has a chance to be a productive, big time, powerful guy on the inside. I think Ivy's got the tools. Funk's got those tools. We'll see which two of these guys, Eccles, obviously coming from LSU, once again, a guy that didn't really, a group that didn't really produce very well last year, but maybe under new coaching. And so the question then becomes, and Eccles could also get into the mix at center, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But I think as a whole, you're about even at guard. I wouldn't say we're going to get worse or better. I think you're probably going to get worse at one and better at the other if the young guys get in there and show the improvement that we expect from them. So I'd say about even at guard. And I'm actually very excited, very, very excited about seeing those young guys on a full-time role, playing on the interior. And then at center, Naboo, we're better, because once again, another year starting for him. He's going to be in his fifth year. We got Josh Moses there. We talked about Cohen Eccles potentially getting there. You lose Coley, but ultimately the guy that played the majority of the snaps for you last year is coming back and will be there again. So, I think we're in pretty good shape at center and feel very good about that. So let's recap that. I think we're better at quarterback. I think we're slightly worse at running back. I think we're better at wide receiver, worse at tight end, worse at tackle, about even at guard, and better at center. So what does that all mean? Well, how about for the passing game? Well, we talked about it earlier. Because of the fact that with the weapons that we have at wide receiver, the improvement from Marcel, I think we have the opportunity to be better, more rounded in the passing game, to have deeper wide receiver group, being able to get the ball to a lot of different guys. But obviously it's going to depend on Wiggins. And with him being a wide receivers coach, you think he's gonna want to give those guys some opportunities. And then, can the offensive line give him enough time? I believe the passing game will be better next year. I think they're going to be more explosive, more explosive. Incredible to say that. And I think they're going to rely on it a little bit more. Running game, nothing really tells me the running game is going to be better. Like I said, we lost our best running back. They still need to show the ability to be the guy. One of those guys needs to be able to step up. Moral. That's the guy I would bet on. Um, and then the offensive line, after losing so much, now they could be more physical. I thought there was times, like I said, where we weren't as physical as we could be on the offensive tackle. So maybe they're more physical, not as experienced, but it allows them to open up some more holes in the running game, give those running backs a little bit more opportunity. I expect the running game to take a step back ultimately because of the loss of Le'Veon Moss. And so we'll see where that ends up going. And once again, where does Marcel fit into all that? I think that he is going to design run less, uh, but still be able to take off improvising. And um, I think that they need to be able to give him um, the opportunity to check things at the line, though, that help our situation as well. So better passing game, maybe slightly worse running game. Let's say worse running game. Overall, what does that say? Well, normally you probably say, you've got two of your three best players, your best tight end, four offensive linemen gone. You'd say worse, right? You'd say worse. One caveat. If Wiggins can do a better job of putting Marcel in a position to get easy wins, easy plays, easy completions, and big plays, explosive plays, then this offense can be better. It's not going to be on a consistent, like, hey, let's pound the ball down the field, 13 plays, 4 yards in a cloud of dust better. But can we get more explosives? Can we create more opportunities for easy wins to the wide receivers, get guys open easier because of Wiggins, right? Can the offensive coordinator help this offense out to make big plays? And if he can, I think this team has an opportunity to be better overall offensively. Explosivity is a big piece. That's my take. Question from the tailgate brought to you by Frida Homes, building Aggie dreams, custom home builders with over 15 years of experience in the Brazos Valley. If you're looking for someone that cares about you and the details you care about, contact Frida Homes. Give Justin a call at 979-450-4466. When you call, just remember, everyone loves their Frida home. Um, First question, is the SEC better or worse in 26? Let's look at this in groups. Let's talk about the top of the SEC. So Georgia, this is the guys that ended up at the top this past year. Georgia, Ole Miss, A&M, Bama, and Oklahoma, right? 5 teams. I think that group is probably worse. Ole Miss, I got to figure it's going to take a step back, losing Kiffin. We still don't know what the situation with Chambliss is. And it looks like, they're going to court over that. Probably win. I'm sure he'll come back. And they've lost some talent, obviously, some went to LSU. But, I think I don't have that same kind of faith in Golden yet. We'll see how that works out. We'll see if Chambliss does come back. But then I also look at Bama, and I think they're taking a step back. Everybody's got A&M taking a step back, right? Because of the guys that they've lost. And so, how about Georgia? Maybe about the same. They were pretty darn good at the end of the year. We'll see. But overall, I think out of that group is probably getting a little bit better, a little bit worse. Oklahoma, maybe. Oklahoma could take a step forward with another year for this offense, but they still haven't proven they can score points, so I don't know. For the middle of the pack, Texas, Vandy, Missouri, Tennessee, LSU, kind of the middle of the pack. I don't know. I think Vandy's significantly worse because they lost Pontiac, period. Done. How about Stowers? Done. They're going to probably have a freshman starting at quarterback. I think that team is taking a significant step back. Everyone thinks Texas is better, but I question the defense. I don't know if that defense is going to be any better. Offense should be better. Offense should be significantly better. So maybe they end up about even, maybe a little bit better. But with Vandy taking such a significant step back, LSU's probably better. Kiffin, first year though. But Tennessee's probably not as good, right? Tennessee, Mizzou, maybe taking a little step back. I mean, they lost some talent. Tennessee, don't even know who the quarterback is. I'd say this group as a whole maybe is slightly worse. How about the bottom? Kentucky, Florida, Auburn, Mississippi State, South Carolina, Arkansas. That group could definitely be better. I think that group's better. You know, Kentucky could be a lot better under the new coaching regime. Now, with it actually having an offense as with the new coach, I expect those guys to really take a step forward. Florida is better because they're going to have better coaching. They may not have a quarterback. They may not be top of the SEC better, but I think they're better than last year because they're going to be more consistent. That team's going to be based off of defense and that running game. Who's going to be the trigger guy for them? That's going to be the big question. Auburn, Mississippi State, I don't know, maybe they're about the same, maybe a little better, maybe a little worse. I don't know. I mean, Mississippi State's still not going to be any good. That they weren't any good last year. Arkansas can only get better, really. I mean, they were so bad last year, they can only get better. So South Carolina, all their stars returning. Maybe I think they're probably a little better. So overall, where do we stand? I think that group's a little bit better, but as a whole in the SEC, I don't know. I think we're probably the SEC as a whole is probably taking a step back, slightly worse. Now you can probably say that about a lot of teams throughout the country. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where this group ends up. Is there a team in this group that could end up winning a natty? Yeah, sure there is. We talked about Georgia. We think they're going to be, they're going to be productive. They're going to be good again. Could it be A&M taking a big step forward under Wiggins, and Hemphill? Maybe. Texas? Eh, I don't support that. But I think overall, the conference is going to take a slight step back, especially with regards to their top end talent. Next question: name two surprise offensive players for 2026. People are probably going to talk running back. They're going to talk wide receiver. Maybe guys like Kelshawn Johnson. Maybe guys like Tiger Ryden. And there is potential for that. Maybe TK, right? A guy that surprises out there at wide receiver. Uh, Maybe Miles is all of a sudden healthy, man, and ready to roll. Uh, all those things could be true. Maybe Armstrong at tight end shows up, and in year two, man, is ready to take a step, to show what he's all about. Those are possibilities. But I would guess that true answer to this is maybe it's probably on the offensive line. At least one of the guys is on the offensive line. So I'm going to go with Afua. And I think Afua's got a chance to step into that offensive line and be a starter this year. And I think he's got a chance to be a really good starter. And he may be a guy that by the time he finishes next year is better than the guy we lost at his position. So put that name in the box. Don't forget it. Otherwise, Giga Maggies, AP from the tailgate, about to sign out. We'll see you next week, fellas. See you next week.